Good morning. This is John Spink. I am an instructor at the Food Safety and Toxicology Center at Michigan State University, and this is a presentation in the Food Safety Seminar Series for 2008 called Corporate Sustainability Initiatives and Food Safety Certification, Traceability, and Authentication. To begin with, we're going to cover sustainability as an overview of corporate sustainability, some of the Walmart initiatives, food risks, and food countermeasures. And then we'll look at the end of some actions by industry and agencies. First off, sustainability. What is it? It's a big question, pretty common. But it's a term that began about 1987 in a publication of the World Commission on Environment and Development called Our Common Future. And it was also known as the Brundtland Report. And it defines sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this is a very specific definition. Does move away from just environment, although it has a lot of environmental aspects to it. Other concepts that have been applied are called corporate social responsibility, which a lot of people think of as sponsoring the symphony or something. But it has a big social aspect. Triple bottom line is another one. The environment, the economics, and social aspects. Although a lot of scholars will state that the social aspects are very hard to define in a proactive way, although a lot of times you'll know if you hear about it when there's child labor and whatnot. And how is sustainability different from previous eco-initiatives? First off, there's been this kind of evolution from recycling to regulations to now sustainability. And in the 80s, we were running out of landfills. But we're here at Michigan State in the state of Michigan, and Michigan is an international importer of trash from Canada for our landfills. So obviously we didn't run out of landfills. And the next was the regulations of the 90s, and I worked for an oil company, and I was on the first U.S. waste minimization team. And a lot of focus there was on penalties and cost of disposal of hazardous waste. And then finally here in the 2000s, we've got depleting natural resources and looking at climate change. But really it's looking at how to engage sustainability for competitive advantage, for cost control, as we're at $4 gasoline right now, and the ability to grow in a resource-constrained world. This could be in the developing countries as well, where in a lot of those developing countries you have some issues with even having rateable supply of utilities, such as electricity. So if you want to run a grocery store with refrigeration, you need to be able to rely on that utility to grow. And really the business of staying in business. And this is something that a lot of even the Toyota, the maker of the Prius, has emphasized this as really moving forward here. Continuing and sustainable business drivers. This is a key as well. As in the past, a lot of the motivations were more from a negative aspect, avoiding a penalty, where now there are real business drivers and things like improving corporate fuel efficiency for trucks. All of a sudden that's money going to the bottom line, and it's driving inefficiency out of the system. Walmart itself, Walmart's been very active and out front as the largest company in the world and as the largest retailer in the world, has a very big ripple effect and impact on the global economies, let alone the U.S. economies. And really Walmart, whether it's food safety or packaging or retailing, has become a de facto regulator, in fact. So Walmart's sustainability initiative itself. First off, back in October 2005, Lee Scott really, their CEO, really hit it off with their 21st Century Leadership speech. This is available online as well. And he stated that as one of the largest companies in the world with an expanding global presence, environmental problems are our problems. Again, if you want to grow grocery stores in developing countries, you need to be able to assure that supply of electricity to keep things cool. And their environmental goals are simple and straightforward, admittedly aspirational, but to be supplied 100% by renewable energy, to create zero waste, and to sell products to sustain our resources and environment. Wow, those are some pretty big goals. And he states, who better than Walmart to make a kilowatt of electricity go twice as far, or a gallon of diesel take our trucks twice the distance. And then a really interesting part for me was to really see this defense to offense type role, where in the past, in the 80s and 90s, we really were looking at avoiding penalties, and now they're really looking at this as a business advantage. And these are interesting three reasons that he states. Merchandising. So that's to have the right products in the right location that are palatable for the consumer to buy. So that's looking at CFL light bulbs and organic produce. Cost management. If you think about this, as fuel costs go up, Walmart has been able to keep a lot of their fuel costs neutral. So with them just not having the increased cost, they're able to keep their shelf prices stable, where other retailers have not been able to keep shelf prices stable, or they've had to eat into their profits. So cost management is really, from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it's really being, quite forward thinking for them. Also attract employees. Now this one I think is quite odd, but to look back at Walmart, they really are. I mean, from their size as the largest company in the world, if they grow at 4 to 8% a year, they're building a $50 billion business just out of their growth every year. Just think about some of the other $50 billion businesses that you might interact with. There might be 100 managers there. So they need to attract a lot of people to just maintain their growth. But with this sustainability initiative and the ability to impact the world and the way that the world procures products and manufactures products has been pretty awesome. And Walmart has definitely got some things like Ivy League MBAs that have passed on Wall Street internships to come down to Bentonville for the summer. And a lot of the research, or a lot of the management teams, up to half the members have only been there 5 years or less. So this sustainability initiative has definitely paid off for Walmart in this area of attracting employees. License to grow. This is both a philosophical concept but also a practical concept. Again, if you're growing in emerging markets, that if you generate your own electricity, then you really are able to come in and really provide a service for people. So instead of begging your way into a community, they're being invited in. Or companies like Walmart that are pursuing this sustainability initiative are being invited in. And back there in October, when they announced the drive, AP article that Walmart stores unveiled an environmental plan Tuesday to boost energy efficiency, reduce waste, and trim greenhouse gas as part of a wider effort to address issues where it has been pummeled by critics in the past. There's some positive aspects PR-wise of this, but really it's business drivers, clear business drivers. And it shows from the analysts saying that the environmental plans are not so much a radical change by Walmart as a recognition that efficiency and waste reduction make good business sense in an era of higher energy prices. Again, this was October 2005, almost 3 years ago. And so it's pretty forward thinking. Overview of Walmart's corporation. The economies and motivation of scale is pretty amazing for Walmart. This is from the book The Walmart Effect. Walmart's in a unique position, being bigger than the next 9 U.S. retailers combined. Walmart's international operations are as big as Target and Home Depot combined. So they've got some huge scale. So for them to make a 1% improvement in their costs could be $4 billion, could be $40 billion. There's some pretty awesome scales here. And also that could allow some products to be commercialized in the marketplace if Walmart just brings in that different type of polymer or whatnot. Regulatory versus market drivers. This is pretty amazing. The EPA can levy a seven-figure fine. Walmart can wipe out more than a quarter of a business in one fell swoop, as Mr. Scott, the CEO of Walmart, reminded his audience in a not-so-subtle exercise in passive-aggressive environmental regulation. What a key. Wow. Regulations really establish a floor in a marketplace, and these market drivers really drive the very, very top and very forward-looking companies. So the impact can be absolutely awesome. Scorecards and the packaging scorecard. There's been a lot of talk and publicity about Walmart's scorecards. They're scorecarding sustainability, and they specifically have a packaging scorecard that's been really the most active at the start. And what they do is they have these sustainable value networks, or SVNs. They've grown to 14 of them. They're grouped under 3 concepts of renewable energy, zero waste, and sustainable products. And the Sustainable Value Network is a group of companies that would be suppliers or whatnot, government organizations, non-government organizations, and academics that have been invited to help Walmart define, grow, and implement this initiative. There have been people that passed up going back to grad school or passed on moving to different companies for the opportunity to remain working with these SVN groups just because so much is going on. Packaging SVN is recognized as by far the biggest and most active and most productive group. This is very logical because the packaging industry, about every 10 years, we get pummeled by some different group or different issue. So packaging has very strong associations and groups that are used to be working together in a non-competitive environment. It's predicted there is one package scorecard, and it's predicted that there will be one product scorecard that will feed into an overall sustainability index. Key is that the packaging SVN just moved a lot faster than the others, so the packaging scorecard is the one that's in place right now. And the business driver behind these scorecards is to provide Walmart buyers with a standardized metric to measure sustainability. Like products will be evaluated in the overall buyer scorecard. And sustainability is one factor in the overall buyer scorecard with the likes of sell-through, in-stocks, damage, and returns. So the buyer will be looking at a matrix, a spreadsheet of how products score, and it's their job to optimize the score of products. And so sustainability now will be in there. The key, too, is that Walmart wanted to create a central common metric, because buyers, as even members of the industry, may not be very familiar with which products are sustainable and which ones are benefit and which ones aren't. The whole cut off your nose to spite your face type thing. Because in some cases you may make an action that moves to lighten the weight of a product, but if you move from a monolayer recycled plastic into a non-recycled plastic, then that's not from a greenhouse gas standpoint and sustainability standpoint. You're really moving in the wrong direction. Walmart planned a one-year trial period for the scorecard, and as of February 2008, this last February, the scorecard is utilized in purchasing decisions. Here's how the metrics break down. It's just kind of an FYI to start. Basically, it's how much, what is it, and how far did it come. And it has been confirmed that the buyer scorecard is being used in buying decisions now. And to step back a second, this scorecard was really developed at the request of industry, governmental organizations, NGOs, and academics, because we all wanted to have transparency, to know how we were being judged, and to have a hand in really evaluating which products were better truly for the environment. So Walmart has these 14 different value networks. Food and Ag have started to work together under the Food and Ag Sustainable Value Network. And the goal in general from the Food and Ag part is to minimize, eliminate, or really optimize some different aspects of sustainable harvesting and transportation. So sustainable harvesting is water, energy, and chemicals, and it's reported that 70% of all the fresh water in the planet is used for ag. So there's a good reason to focus on that. Transportation, fuel efficiency, like food miles. One of the things Walmart did is, they looked at where their product was being consumed around the country and where the product was being manufactured around the U.S. or around the world, and then they looked to try to optimize the food miles, the distance product travels. So if you can't reduce the cost of the product itself, you can reduce or control some costs along the way of getting the product to market. So one thing they did is for cilantro is that they encouraged the production or ag growth of cilantro in Florida. So all of a sudden that moves to their East Coast market a little easier than when Arizona or coming from outside the U.S. One thing too is just generally speed to market and shelf life. With orange juice, they used to go to several regional DCs and then out to some of the big distribution centers before going to stores. Well, they ended up going directly from Florida for that orange juice directly to their local DCs, and they cut out 1 million miles of unnecessary truck transport. Now, one of the things that it also did is it cut a couple days out of that distribution cycle. So with fresh orange juice that has a shelf life, they were able to add shelf life to that product, not by doing anything to the product itself, but just by the way that they handle it and move it. One thing they look at as well is humane conditions, fair trade, and Rainforest Alliance. The Sam's Club coffee is reportedly all, Sam's Club brand is now all fair trade there. So they're definitely making some efforts in that direction. Food safety and packaging. Still looking at combining with the other SVNs, but trying to assure as they do move to new markets or global supply chains, and as they move from conventional to organic, that they do still maintain food safety. Seafood and Fisheries SVN. For seafood, they're looking at certified harvesting methods, and Marine Stewardship Council is one of the certifications and groups that they use. And it's reported, again, by the Walmart Effect, the book, that Walmart buys 10 to 20% of the Chilean salmon production, the entire production. So as that big of a purchaser, they have a lot of influence in that market. Also with the Aquaculture Certification Council, looking at farm-raised and mainly shrimp products, too, of how that they can have this type of certification. Basically, Walmart wants to keep selling shrimp. And so to do that, they realized that they would have to look long-term and help encourage farming practices that were sustainable, that would be able to continue into the future. Also, again, with seafood, looking at transportation, fuel miles, and the like, and then educating consumers on the aspects of the certification, of why it's important and why they can trust this type of product that they have in their stores. To take a little bit different approach here, sustainability in food, the products and processes regarding health. There's a lot of risks here as you move to this different global economy and have a lot of these different type of attributes of a product, such as country of origin labeling or organic. And one is to look at a risk is that healthcare companies have been sued and held liable for injuries from counterfeit products, even though they did not manufacture them. So this could be a product that, in this case, a pharmaceutical product, but all of a sudden, if some of these, if there's some type of shrimp that has some sort of antibiotic residual or whatnot, there could be some risk there. Liability based on the failure to act towards a known threat. That's a key that's been a part of the risks and the liability. The claims of liability include failure to implement security features, failure to secure the supply chain. So again, if they're buying 10%, 20% of the entire market shipping, and they know that supply chain is moving quickly to their distribution centers, but the liability laws do show that those manufacturers need to take steps to secure the supply chain. Also, failure to alert consumers and regulators about the presence of counterfeit products in relevant markets. Specifically for counterfeit, this applies, but it could be for dangers of products that are in the entire market. This really applies more to a manufacturer, because Walmart does control how product moves through their distribution centers to their marketplace. So that doesn't apply as much to retailers. So what might be wrong in food if there's some type of food fraud or illicit food that gets swapped out in the process? A number of different things. If you think about melamine in pet food, if you think about the melamine as a counterfeit additive rather than an adulterated product like E. coli being on spinach, you think about it completely differently. There's an economic intent to defraud by a human, and so there's different type of opportunity there than again the E. coli getting on. But with food, different. If there's products that get in the system, you've got a problem of allergens or allergen labeling, pathogens in there, obviously poison and harmful chemicals, different types of pesticides that may be used around the world. Inactive ingredients or preservatives. Interesting one here. To have a lack of that preservative in there may all of a sudden lead to a product to be unhealthy. And other just general non-GMP environment issues. Pardon me. We have problems with food safety in some great networks here in the U.S. And all of a sudden, if you're not being as diligent with HACCP and other things, then there's definitely some issues. And what can happen in the food fraud area is through the process is product substitution. So there's been non-grouper product labeled as grouper, up-labeling. This could be something like scotch of 80 proof labeled as 100 proof. Adulteration. This would be melamine in the pet food. So the melamine was in the pet food to increase the nitrogen content, because the nitrogen is how they measure the amount of protein or the quality of the whey that was in there. Product copy, unauthorized refill, okay, and then freshening. This would be changing the date codes of product that has expired. So sustainability in food, products and processes regarding the environment. We're looking at other ag products, timber, paper, furniture, and other non-ag food products. Would be looking at the way that they're using an improved manufacturing plant. That's all along with different types of certifications, improved raw material suppliers, and improved quality level. So even with some private label products, they may be specifying certain quality, and they want to make sure that they're getting it. That could be for safety. If you think about some extension cords or things like that. Think of sustainable or healthy products. You've got renewable energy, water treatment practices, timber, fair trade, fair wages, non-embargo countries. Interesting. So say a country that's got an embargo ships through a free trade zone, and all of a sudden the country of origin has swapped. Using approved suppliers versus unapproved suppliers, and country of origin of the crafts as well. And then if you think of other health-related issues, lead paint and toys, obviously an issue, safety specifications, wiring, bolts, motors. There was actually a GAO report that was out that some of the products, bolts used in nuclear power plants didn't meet specification. And just about a month ago, there was a company that was shipping in carbon fiber attack helicopter blade parts that were not meeting certifications, thread count in clothing and treat rate of coatings, etc. So to look at sustainability food risks, one specific threat is what we call here food profiteering, and also looking at economic fraud. And the global counterfeit food threat is estimated at 49 billion per pyre. And the UK's Food Standards Boards, FSA, estimated the UK level of fraud around 10%. Now, level of fraud doesn't mean counterfeit product or fake product, but some sort of fraud in there. It might be an additive that's supposed to be there. It could be an amount of vitamin C that's not met. But very interesting that high a level is there. So we're looking at something that's very, very substantial. An example looks at conventional sold as organic. Netherlands customs officers intercepted 2 shipments totaling 28,000 tons of soy products at the Rotterdam seaport, and Spanish customs made 9 seizures totaling 211,000, supposed to be 211,000 tons of soy flour. So this is product that's moving through the market. There's also been some of the animal feed that's been GMO sold as conventional, or conventional sold as organic. But the key with the GMO sold as conventional is that it was shipped to Europe and was going to be fed to cattle that were supposed to be non-GMO cattle. So there's an issue there. And with the soy production being down, there's a higher demand for product, and thus a higher demand or higher opportunity for fraud. Pet food with melamine we talked about, catfish with banned antibiotics, scallops with bacteria. There's just good manufacturing practices, or handling in the supply chain. All of a sudden, if it's supposed to be kept frozen and it's not, etc. Toothpaste with diethylene glycol. There's a branded toothpaste there in dollar stores. So what's a lower price than product in a dollar store? Species swapping of grouper, and then even things that are very high level packaging technology. I mean, cases of Red Bull energy drink was intercepted going between Singapore and shipped to France. And to step back, fruit juice adulteration. This was a GAO report from a while back. It's a good example. Unscrupulous juice processors can gain an economic advantage over legitimate producers by adding less expensive ingredients such as water and sugar to juice and labeling the results as product is pure. Now, is this a real public health threat? No, it's definitely an economic threat, but it is a FTC type violation. So especially if this is a private label product, this could be a big problem for the retailer. Federal prosecutors conservatively estimated that the magnitude of the fraud for the 6 successfully prosecuted fraud cases ranged from $2 million for the smallest case to $37 million for the largest case. That is quite a bit of fraud. And these are only 6 of the cases that they brought through. In 1981, 50% of the samples analyzed in accordance with Florida standards were adulterated with pulp wash. In 1984, 32% were diluted with water. So this is a pretty amazing amount of product that was fraudulent. Granted, it was 20 years ago. The thing is you say, well, we're just going to start to test the product. Well, who's going to pay for these tests? And these tests cost money. The cost of these tests range from $15 to $700 for each test. So if you are just testing 1,000 samples, you're talking real money here. So who picks up the cost of that? That's a question that still needs to be answered. And this is from a GAO report about fruit juice adulteration. And it was in the U.S. school lunch program. To look at the supply chain, what's happening that's leading to this opportunity for threat? Beyond consumers looking to buy some more of those products such as organic or natural or with some other types of features to them, that's where the demand side is. But several factors have driven this enhanced focus on supply chain security. And first, the increasingly global economy both generates and depends on the free flow of people, goods, and information. Product flows around the world very quickly and in and out of different ports. Businesses increasingly depend on efficient supply chain operations, meaning fast, and electronic as well. And increased terrorist threats result in significant implications for homeland and global security. This report back in 2004, it was published in 2004, but really took place a couple years before and had a lot more focus on the attacks in the supply chain. But the concepts still apply to just contraband or illicit product in the supply chain. And to look up ahead a little bit to actions, really detection must be considered one of the stages of emergency management. The Food Protection Plan for FDA that just came out at the end of 2007, I believe, really does focus on prevention, not just identifying the threats or the reactive responses, which are important as well, but really trying to be a lot more proactive and look at where these risk opportunities are. Free trade zones and country of origin. Free trade zones pose a unique risk. I mean, it's a great opportunity for product to move quickly around the world, but at the same time, there's some issues. So free trade zones are a specific threat since counterfeiters can hide repackaging or sanitize a product's source, meaning that a product coming from a questionable country goes through a free trade zone in a less questionable country, and all of a sudden the paperwork's changed to come from that free trade zone or that country. Now, nothing may have happened to the product. This also could happen with embargo countries. And then from the U.S., Elisa Bernstein is the Director of Pharmacy Affairs at the FDA. Free trade zones allow counterfeiters to evade the laws of the country because oftentimes the regulations are lax in those zones. By nature, they're lax because product comes in and essentially doesn't really get received in that country, and then it's moved on. So a lot can happen in those trade zones. So, coming down to the end here, looking at the countermeasures. What do we do that can help deter these risks and deter these opportunities? First, certifications. To start out, to engage reputable certification bodies. Ensure ongoing recertification, vigilance, and diligence. So just because someone does get certified, to look at the process. Do they certify a product until it passes once? Or so they test 99 times, it doesn't pass, the 100th time it passes, so it's now certified. How often do they recertify? And it's really with your vigilance and diligence of looking at these certification bodies and companies, the companies that are getting certified, that you're communicating clearly to them that you're watching and it's important to you. Auditing. Review the auditing process of the certifications. Review in-country and in-transit procedures. Proactively monitor in-country hazards. So if you start to see, say you're buying pet food, obviously melamine has been an issue with pet food. Right there would be that would be an example of proactively monitoring the in-country hazards. If you know that these things are coming out, just start finding a way to look at that and look for it. Again, vigilance and diligence. If you keep looking, keep working at it, the bad guys are going to know that you are, and they're going to try to move on to a lower a target that doesn't have as high a chance of getting caught. Traceability, track and trace. Well, first thing you want to do is when you're tracking and tracing product, you're looking to review the entire supply chain for gaps. That's the key, that as product transfers or handles from different people, different places, there's an opportunity or a gap. Review the normal flow of products to monitor for deviations. So here's a big key, that if your product normally is coming through one port and another time comes through another port, there may be some type of deviation there that doesn't look normal. Dynamic monitoring of the flow. Here again, if product normally takes a certain number of days to get from point A to point B and all of a sudden it gets there 2 days later, an air freight that all of a sudden gets there 2 days later, there's some other potential issue. Conduct mock, trace, and recalls. This is a key to your overall process, and if you include the suppliers in there, then again, they know that you're looking, and you'll also speed up their response because your suppliers will respond to what's important to continuing to sell to you. Process, you need to have a process to monitor and address deviations or inconsistencies. The process is not someone leaving a voicemail saying, hey, something doesn't look right. A process is to have something very specific that goes on, some warning signs that go up, and some specific actions that occur if you do see some of these deviations. Vigilance and diligence. Authentication. Authentication is a different beast here. It's a process to determine if a product is genuine in source, manufacturer, dose, specification, quality, or safety. So this is beyond just finding out if it's a genuine product. If you buy a product on an electronic auction site on the internet, that may be a legitimate product, maybe manufactured in a legitimate plant, but all of a sudden, has that product, if it's affected by the environment, has it been too hot or too cold? Is it still safe? Was it a rejected product? Was it a factory, a product that was supposed to have been destroyed? Is it remanufactured? So authentication would help you try to figure all these issues. Again, not just that it's a legitimate product. Something stolen would be a legitimate product, but all of a sudden the source or the distribution of it is now not legitimate. Audit the auditors. Again, if people know that you're looking, then they will continue to be vigilant. Incoming goods audits, quality assurance. This is done for a lot of goods, like maybe additives or base oil coming into an industrial oil plant. They check the viscosity. Well, they may check some additive levels. Well, why not add one or two other tests in the HACCP standard operating procedures to look for other types of variations? Retail audits of products on the shelf. So for manufacturers or retailers to go out and proactively pull products that are from higher risk groups and test it to make sure. Process to monitor and address deviations or inconsistencies. Hey, the same bullet point again. Again, if people should be going out proactively, and if they do find some of these deviations or inconsistencies, there should be a standard process to record those and to really monitor what's going on. Vigilance and diligence. So from countermeasures, these are some things. It covers some package, covers some supply chain information technology, as well as from the government regulatory standpoint. Overt countermeasure for anti-counterfeit would be something like a hologram, where you can clearly see on the package this feature. Covert would be something that's a little bit more hidden. This might be like a security tag for shoplifting, and some of those tags are on the inside of cartons. So from the outside you wouldn't see it. This could also be some color shifting ink or some type of feature that you need to have a device to really look at or look closely at. Forensic is also called reserved. These are things that are really more secret, trade secrets, and held very, very confidential by companies. And that might be something like micro taggants in the product, so parts per million, parts per billion type of taggant. So you could then test this product to make sure that it's at the right that it is the right additives are in there. Track and trace we talked about, just monitoring product throughout the supply chain. Authentication we talked about. Investigation, again, this is like going to retail, testing in retail. It's also looking at the supply chains, testing product throughout, and if you find that there could be some problems, to go ahead and start to investigate those. Now, at the end of the day, these are a lot of things that you do yourself as a company, but you really do need to join in regulation on a global scale, on a nationwide scale, to really look at keeping the regulation or laws, legislation in place to have intellectual property rights fraud be a crime. Because if it's not a crime, then those producing countries could continue to produce it. Standard operating procedures. Everything has to be brought back into standard operating procedures, so that you have process to monitor it and processes to deal with this. Vigilance and diligence. Continue to look. And what we want to do is just take one more step here to look at the actions. Standard operating procedures, collaboration across industry, and then research. Looking at anti-counterfeit food research, back in 2007, work we did here. Counterfeit food is a public health threat. We hadn't found this published and put exactly like this. So it was an important first step to just establish counterfeit food is a public health threat. This was before melamine and others. As is done in food safety and food security, the most efficient and effective implementation is incorporating anti-counterfeit strategic steps into current standard operating procedures, HACCP, GMP, Six Sigma, quality assurance, etc. Current anti-counterfeit strategies and procedures from elsewhere in industry will be efficient and effective for the food industry. So key is that we don't have to develop anything real new. Now, as new technology or capabilities come out, things with cell phones or satellite or GPS, whatever, then for us to try to utilize that. But there's an awful lot that we do in the system that can still be very, very effective. The range of criminals and range of actions will continue to be more aggressive, bolder, and more effective at infiltrating the legitimate supply chain. And then here at Michigan State, we have the Packaging for Food and Product Protection Initiative, and we're working on teaching and outreach. We have developed a course here that just went live. We've got executive education coming, looking at a certificate and degree program as well. And if you have any interest, you can contact me, John Spink. And then in general, the Food Safety Center is looking at education as a key to improving the transparency of the process and exposing the risks while optimizing the solutions. Public-private partnerships, and we have a master's degree, this Pro-MS program. And would like to open for further discussion. Thank you.